People of Donstar and Morthal used to have a sibling rivalry going. Now Morthal is almost a ghost town. It's a shame.
Greetings. Yes, Sirrah, I own the curved sword. I know it doesn't look like much, but in time it will be the finest specialty shop in all of Skyrim. Right you are, Sirrah. They're the pride of Hammerfell, but I assure you we don't make them as an affectation. Curving the blade is ideal for slashing, while at the same time concentrating the pressure of the edge on a specific area. The edge cuts clean, but with less resistance, and won't get stuck in your opponent like an axe or straight edge blade. Trust me, that is not a pretty sight if you're fighting on horseback. Not today, Sirrah, but tomorrow. Tomorrow they may. You might as well ask me to turn wind into rain and the moons into stars. The blacksmiths in Hammerfell dedicate nearly half their lives to learning their craft. And yet, you wish for me to pass this knowledge as if it were the time of day. I am no sorcerer, Sirrah. Alas, Sirrah, that's not for sale. I like to keep a sample for any skeptical customers who might doubt the sword's utility. It also serves as an example of my previous work with which I can compare craftsmanship. Without it, I cannot be certain whether the quality has been degraded by the tools I have at my disposal. If that were the case, I could trade my hammer for a club and smelt iron with a stove. Oh no, I am afraid you are mistaken, Sirrah. Tools matter every bit as the man. These are suspicious times, Sirrah, and caution isn't necessarily a weakness. It seems, however, that many in this land are cautious to trust but hasty to judge. Make sure you don't make the same mistake. That's right. It's not an ideal location, with the inn on the other side of town, and rumors about Phalion don't exactly attract my sort of customer. That being said, the very same rumors make Phalion more welcoming to outsiders. Being a fellow Redguard doesn't hurt either. Not to mention spell swords can use his enchanting table to embolden the weapons they purchase at my shop. So, like I said, all in all not an ideal situation, but not entirely a bad one. That and he's the only one who had the space. Oh, the townsfolk say he raises the dead and molests children or something absurd like that. Which is what happens when you're a master conjurer and choose to adopt a small child. As if mages can't be fathers too. Actually, the Thalmor are precisely why I'm here in Skyrim. As Somerset Isle and Hammerfell are divided only by a narrow sea, many say that our kingdom is the vanguard in the defense against the Aldmeri. During the height of the war, blacksmiths were said to be in high demand as the Dominion spread its tendrils over the southern coast. However, after the Second Treaty of ToughGamingGuy was signed, there became a surplus of weapons and a sudden shortage of Thalmor. Many of us were forced to become farmers, or worse. At least the men were saved the indignity of becoming a tavern wench. When Ulfric started his rebellion, I stowed on the first ship to Solitude like a fly chasing manure. Of course, the other smiths thought I was crazy. They said burly Nord men would not go for such an elegant weapon. I aimed to prove them wrong. You wound me, Sirrah. The blade you see before you is proof of my skill. Any Redguard from here to Hegath will vouch for its craftsmanship. No, wait. You're right. I haven't been completely honest with you. As you say, I am not what I seem. I have a contact at the East Empire Company. He supplies me with the scimitars, but I assure you they're legitimately made. The blacksmith happens to be very skilled, but wishes to remain anonymous. My contact all but implied he was a Nord. If the Alakir were to come and see the quality of this craftsmanship, they would demand that I construct more for the coterie. I've picked up the blacksmith trade to maintain appearances, but as you can imagine, my scimitars lack the proper balance.
I used to be an adventurer like
This
you.
blacksmith,
Then I
this
took an arrow
Nord,
in the knee.
he is a master. I thank you for your discretion, Sirrah.
Go
This
fiddling
blacksmith,
with any locks
this
around here,
Nord,
we're going to
he
have a
is
real
master.
problem.
Slow. Agni suggested I put on a public demonstration in solitude, but I told her I'm a blacksmith, not a warrior. I'm not sure she understands the distinction. Benner came by the other day asking if I made those curved Akaviri weapons. The ignorance of these brutes continues to astound me. He probably saw my desert garb and assumed I was a Khajiit. Business is fine, but home is a bit tense. With all the talk about Phalion, you'd think Jonah would step up to defend him. Although I sympathize. Cruel as it sounds, Phalion can take care of himself, and sometimes business has to come before family. Greetings. Until next time.
Well, if it isn't the slayer of the Glenmoral witches, how can I assist you, companion?
Every day I fight with a chip on my shoulder. Every time I see a guard wearing the uniform, I remember how they said I wasn't good enough to wear it.
Well, look who it is. Never know who you might run into out here. Good to see you, friend.
Heard about
Bye.
you and your honeyed words.
Oh, that. You may not have noticed, but there's a large beehive stuck to the roof over the firewood. I was going to take it down, but Agni begged me to let the infernal things live. With most children, I tend to ignore such petulance. After all, children may be noisy as Nirnroot, but their memories are as fickle as a brothel wench. With Agni having lost both her parents and that child in the fire, well, Phalien thought it best not to add to her loneliness. Yes, but can you handle the sobbing of a young girl? Until next time. Yes? Authentic goods crafted by a blacksmith of Hammerfell. Blades, helmets, pretty much anything that suits your needs. All right. Yes? Ah! Yes? Goodbye.
Hear the old stories. Sweet enough to play on a large lute. They always start the same. Something like, once upon a time in a world not unlike a dream. Sometimes I wonder if this is all just that. A story. Yours. Mine. Maybe the tavern holders. All of Skyrim. Just a cold drink of ale poured into a frozen glass.
Dawnstar was once a thriving port town. The East Empire Company all but put an end to that. All ships coming from the north dock at Solitude.
What about you, stranger? What about this city speaks to you? I understand that all too well. I migrated from Solitude. Every structure there is like a mausoleum. The name's Jasper Gerston. I'm a raider. Aspiring raider. I always forget that word. Funny how large the chasm is between the two. Solitude, for lack of a better word, is suffocating. It's not just the walls and the people. It's the inside of the buildings, too. They all have the same thick, musky smell, like the kind that you find in abandoned shacks, with boarded-up windows, where the air is freckled with dust. Only in Solitude, the windows are frosted. And when the light gets filtered through them, even the sun feels cold. It was a wandering thought. passed on to a stranger. I was looking at the ocean this morning. Came to a realization. Skyrim is a tale with no end. You flip back to a previous page, only to find that the line's been changed. But the old themes still remain. There will always be war, suffering, glory, and love. Time never grows old. It's a season unending, a story everlasting. So it did in the Great War, in the Oblivion Crisis, and countless times before. Return of an ancient evil. The birth of a new one. Somewhere out there, a hero is waking up in a strange room, in a dungeon, or in their bed, rubbing their eyes to slow music and a bottle of warm mead. And it happens. The bard bangs his drum. The mead goes down like a knife in the throat. The city burns. A treasure is found. A boy meets a girl. The story I wrote was about a warrior. But good tales are never about the wars, but the people who fight them. That's why wars are so personal. Everyone has someone they lost. All of our fates woven into a single wound. Except mine. The world has its problems, and I have my problems. Neither one cares about the other. The Nords are somewhat primitive. Some still think that wearing fine clothes without fur means you worship Daedra. But simple minds can foster strong emotion. The Nords are people willing to swear their undying fealty to a feeling. That's what I'm trying to capture. Alas, no. I've heard that a writer's words must sing from the page. The bard takes that interpretation literally. I tried it once, singing. The demand for bards is much higher than for writers, which is evident by the number of people in Skyrim who can read. So you've lost your hearing. A shame. But I prefer damaged men. I tried it once. But ᵯᴑᴆᴆᴇᴆ was a poetic bard, not a singing one. He's also a talented lutist. I do none of the three. I tried it once, singing. Have you ever heard of the Bard's Leap? Better a corpse than a poet. I tried it once. Close. It wasn't as emotive as your description. It still cleared the room, however. I tried it once. Seeing some things are fundamental. The sun will rise in the east. The snow will fall in Winterhold. And I will never be the man people want me to be. I'm the second worst person to seek advice from. The worst is Alexander Simon. At least my failures were never published for all the world to read. A bard's song will make you pick up a sword. A soldier's life will make you put it down. The lighthouse is more than a beacon. Its fire is an embrace, welcoming the weary sailor home. When it dies, so does chivalry. My light is all but extinguished. So my advice is to talk to people. Every day. Keep yours aflame. Don't fall victim to nostalgia. It's just another kind of loneliness. If you're headed towards solitude, don't buy your drinks from the tavern. Go buy the spice wine directly from the ᵯᴑᴆᴆᴇᴆ in the market. Just don't let Corpulus see you bring it in. Live your days, so the days will not outlive you. Of course, the Nords have a word for this. It's cowardice. Never ask Karita to play you a sad song. She doesn't understand melancholy. Yes. Don't become a writer. I've tried. In fact, when I was in solitude, I wrote maybe hundreds of tales, but none worth reading. I was still maturing then, looking for my voice. I would look back on something I penned a week before, shake my head at how shallow the words were, how empty they felt. I began to doubt if I could write anything of substance, and found my solace at the bottom of a flagon. I spent my nights at the winking skeever, and my mornings outside his door. Even ToughGamingGuy found my behavior uncouth. One night, Corpulus got fed up, kicked me out into the streets, and told me to never come back. That's when I met my muse. No, not this time. Probably never will. My muse was different. He was a warrior, an orc. He was a titan, with arms like tree trunks cut from the great forest. Only, something wasn't right about the way he looked at the tavern sign. When I asked him what was wrong, he managed to force out a word. His bottom lip quivered like a child who just dropped a sweet roll. The word he said was skeever. He was a giant, with shoulders larger than the domes of the Blue Palace. And he was absolutely terrified of rats. That night, for the first time, I wrote with purpose. There was none of the doubt or fear that marred my previous work. The words came faster than I could jot them down. For 3 days and 3 nights I continued. When I was done, I knew the work was true. It was the best manuscript I had ever written. It was the best I could ever write. About an orc who wouldn't follow. About the definition of strength and the fragile nature of the mind. About how even the bravest and boldest among us can succumb to an ordinary fear. On my way back to Solitude, I stopped by Morthal. I met a red guard there, a blacksmith. I thought, who better to give the manuscript to? When I set the book on his table, it felt like a period, an end. But maybe it was more like a comma. Maybe all I needed was to start anew. So from Morthal, I went east, not west. And here I am. No. Not since ᵯᴑᴆᴆᴇᴆ rejected my last work. I'm trying a new style. Less words, more pith. As if each sentence were its own story. Traveling the Windhelm changed me in 2 ways. I now lack the funds to travel. More importantly, the Constitution. I see. You must have been curious to seek out one man's trifle in a world full of them. I almost feel the need to apologize for wasting your time. I thank you for the compliment. Sometimes I wonder if that's enough. If just one person enjoyed my work, maybe it was all worth it. Maybe then it all had purpose. Even as my voice was reduced to a whisper, there was someone out there bothering to listen. I admit, I never thought of that. Is it possible he never bothered to read it? I wonder if I should get a second opinion. But I don't know if my heart could take another rejection. I almost don't want to open that door, give in to hope. If you're willing to do this, I can keep my eyes to the east. You may find someone back west, where the story was conceived, back in solitude. Until next time.
Sibyl Stentor has a grasp of magical theory that I would never have expected from a human, even a Breton.
Solitude is too big for someone like me. There's too many places to get lost, and I damn sure wouldn't be able to find anything. We've stopped. What is it? Let's go.
Please address all questions to the steward. Folk Firebeard.
If you've come to file another complaint, I won't deign to hear it. If my presence is that much of an issue, tell it to the steward. Everyone whines and moans about how loosely I flap my tongue, as if Thane Erikur's eccentric love life were not a matter of public knowledge. And for the last time, I am not a Thalmor agent here to destabilize the court. You're thinking of my terribly unfashionable twin sister, Mithril. My name, on the other hand, is Nithriel, and I am both an attendant of the court and someone worthy of your confidence. Well, let's just say Thane Ericur prefers to do his shopping in the dungeon rather than the marketplace. On some days, he'll even emerge with a sack that rattles so violently it betrays its contents as he walks. Although I think, and you didn't hear this from me, that Ericur isn't the one doling out the punishment. He strikes me as someone who likes to be bent over a chair with a gag in his mouth. His sister, on the other hand, is another story. No, I wasn't implying they perform these acts together. Although now that I think about it, how salacious. You, stranger, have a good eye. I wonder, is that from experience? When it comes to deviance, they do say it takes one to know one. What manner of skeleton do you keep in your closet? I promise it will be our little secret. As long as you bother to come home. Otherwise, you may find your new home costs 10 gold per night. Although the noise is free. I'm not a gossiper, just gregarious. I don't embellish. It's just the facts don't convey the spirit of what really happens. I'm not high maintenance, just high-minded. When I petition for funding for a party or festival, or new robes for the Thanes, I do so with purpose. Nobles cannot simply skulk around like common thieves. We must present ourselves in a fashion befitting our rank. Oh, you jest. But what I do isn't overstating the facts. It's investigating them. If, every night, strangers walk in and out of a large house with no windows, I don't need to enter the premises to tell you it's a brothel. Nor do I need more than one glance at you to see you're an adventurer with a hunger for battle and the flesh. Tell me, what sort of person does the stranger fancy? Oh, you're no fun at all. For a second I thought you were being serious. Oh, very well then. Leave me in suspense. For one, I'm an excellent listener. People are willing to divulge things to me without even taking into account whether I can provide sage advice. Second, I'm delightful to speak with. Not only do I have interesting rumors to share, but I can relate them in ways that spark your imagination. For instance, if I were to tell you Elisif trusts Folk Firebeard with everything, you would likely nod your head and praise the steward. Then we'd begin to dwell on the awkward silence that followed, and proceed to start hating each other and ourselves for not being more interesting. Now, if I were to tell you that Jarl Elisif trusts Folk Firebeard with everything, and perhaps curl my lips into a smile, I imagine you would have little difficulty formulating a reply. As a court attendant, I mostly deal with acquiring clothes, silverware, and other accessories from merchants both local and overseas. The Blue Palace cannot have its residents dressed like common rubes. And by rubes, I mean the lesser nobles that inhabit the other holds. Unfortunately, much of the clothing I had recently shipped in by the East Empire Company was deemed Too impractical, given Skyrim's frigid weather. Nothing like these peasant bodices the Nords wear. They were garments truly fit for the divine race. You should have seen the quality of lace I had brought in from the Somerset Isle. Silks and linens embroidered with silver and gold. It's rather difficult to feel like oneself, let alone a divine wearing these thick coats and furs. I suppose I will have to make my face all the more stunning to compensate. That still implies that gossip itself is a negative, akin to a paper cut or a particularly vexing housefly. However, I believe it ties the community together. The more we know about each other, the more intimate our relationships. Gossip is inclusive. It allows outsiders such as yourself to easily join the conversation. Spend an hour with me and you'll know everything about everyone and truly feel like one of the locals. Then allow me to provide you with an extra token, free of charge. I have it on good authority that Erikur's wizard, Meleran, has some rather disturbing habits. One of which is standing over his master's bed while he sleeps. I'm not at liberty to say from whom I received this information, but you can take a guess. Indeed, they asked me what I saw, and I told them what I heard. Ulfric Stormcloak shouting King Torygg to pieces! And I do mean that literally. From what I understand, there were chunks of the High King all over the walls of the throne. General Tullius, meanwhile, was screaming at Aldis for letting Ulfric escape. Naturally, Aldis made Rogvir a scapegoat for his own ineptitude. Which is laughable. Rogvir couldn't even find his own bottom, let alone an escape route past the castle guard. According to my sources, the only person to leave the castle was an Argonian male who took the carriage by the stables later that night. Alone, this would mean little. But consider this. When Ulfric shouted Torygg to death, some claim his skin burst open to reveal a pattern of scales. Not the scales of an Argonian, but that of a dragon. Didn't he? If my voice paralyzes you, and I use that opportunity to cut you into bites of flesh, is that not the same thing? Besides, if the townsfolk aren't capable of deciphering a simple metaphor, then that is no one's fault but their own. Well, it was rather tragic what Ulfric did to Torygg, but not nearly as tragic as the prehistoric cave garments with which he dresses his generals. The uniforms of his lower-ranked soldiers are bad enough, given their redundancy. But I mean really, a bear's head? I know third-era fashion is all the rage these days, but I think you have to go back a couple of millennia to find a time when animal heads were stylish. If Elisif mourned anything, it was the death of good taste under Stormcloak rule. But I suspect her husband was important too. Well, I can't say all this melancholy has been good for her complexion, but she's still quite fetching. You may not be aware of this, but it requires a great deal of work to live up to the moniker Elisif the Fair. The last thing a lady wants is to have that name said in jest. Well, yes. You came to the right elf. I know everything about everyone. In fact, You're quite the popular topic these days. So, before I share, I need to know if all the rumors regarding you and that Hagraven are true. After all, I would never spread such lies without first confronting the person in question. As your newest and dearest confidant, I'm glad to hear it. They are wicked creatures and deserve no mercy. Now, I don't want to alarm you, but this may give credence to that other rumor that you have difficulties controlling your rage. One person even accused you of murdering an elderly woman and calling her a Hagraven. A rumor I squashed immediately on your behalf. Gladly. I won't reveal my sources, but from what I hear, a certain publisher has been struggling to stay afloat. In a last-ditch effort, they've sent their minions all over Skyrim in search of the next great writer. One of these critics has limited his search to the winking skeever. Oh, but that's not the scandalous part, for it's not the drinking, but the fact that our critic bears a striking resemblance to one Minette Vinius. A bold person might accuse this critic of bearing an illegitimate child, especially given how gregarious she is compared to her so-called father. Of course, I would never levy such an accusation without proof. Oh, it's rather simple. He always sits at the bar on the furthest stool to the right. They say it offers him the best view. You take the seat, and I'm sure he'll come to you. So, what's new? We're all waiting to hear what you've been up to. Until next time.
If you need a good rumor or two, I think I can oblige. Traitors, civil wars, dragons. Huh. Those troubles don't cross my doorway, so sit, relax.
Bloody Harkers! I told Corpulus I like that stool the best. Has the best view of all the mates that stroll through here. I'd arm wrestle you for it, but something tells me that would leave me sore, tired, and possibly bedridden. What good would that stool do me then? The name's Flint, by the way. Author, publisher, and admirer of the female form. I'm sorry, lad, but I haven't the slightest idea what you're talking about. I'm actually sterile, believe it or not. One of the great gifts the Bella granted me, and there's not a day I don't thank her for it. Just got off the ship, as it were, fresh as a flounder. I came here to pen my next great novel, and while I'm here, keep an eye out for talent. Of course, talent comes in many forms, and they never specified what kind. Why, just the other day, I had a delightful conversation with a high elf named ᵯᴑᴆᴆᴇᴆ. I think she fancies writers. An elf after my own heart. Writers and gossips are one and the same. Everything we hear, everyone we meet, finds their way into a story. And in the end, most of it is lies. Would you believe me if I said I hadn't decided? Inspiration is funny that way. There's so many stories to tell just in solitude alone. You hear about pirate tales, shadowy dealing, and news of war. I even heard a tale about a horker so large it wrecked a ship somewhere on the North Shore.
Yes, Headmaster.
But just because you have a story doesn't mean I'm the right voice to tell it. When it comes, I'll know. You might have. I've written countless epics, poems, and tales of heroism. Still, I'm best known for a terrible piece of tripe I wrote about 7 years ago, called The Duke of Beards. It was a book about a legendary barber, and bloody awful, which is saying something for a work of non-fiction. In fact, I once set out to burn every copy in Skyrim, but the thing took on a life of its own. Turns out that piece of rubbish was the best thing that ever happened to me. The fame I received from that book gave me the coin and the authority to write what I love. They say one man's trash is another man's treasure, but for me, they were one and the same.
Star pupil. None of the others can hold a candle to her, especially not.
Let's see.
Try not to play
Now, if I'm being perfectly honest, I would say this is apprentice-level work. But that being said, you've got talent. Of course. I'm assuming this manuscript is yours. Of course. I can't tell you how many writers hand me manuscripts on behalf of their friends in hopes of getting an honest critique. But regardless of his identity, one thing that's certain is that your friend lacks conviction. I can see it as plain as day on the page. I didn't say that. Although your friend may not like what I'm about to say. With a little polish, we can turn this into a seller. It may not give him the acclaim he seeks, but it will put food on the table. The problem with young artists is that they're a bit too attached to their integrity. He may not go for it. On the other hand, better to be a mediocre artist than a starving one, and it'll give him the leverage to write something of substance. Well, for starters, we need to dumb it down a bit. A few cosmetic changes here and there ought to do it. We also need to make these paragraphs cleaner. They lack direction. It's something that can be fixed easily enough. Lastly, the main character's name. I can tell our friend hasn't spent much time around orcs. I think Bogach is a female name. Right. Jaspar's work. Well, I suppose if you don't mind, other orcs won't either.
How are your students?
Bogach it is. All that's left now is to give my suggestions to your friend. If the final copy passes muster, I'd be more than happy to have it published.
Try not to play favorites, Lady Atea.
Safe travels.
To the whole class.
If you need a good rumor or two,
Yes,
I
Headmaster.
think I can oblige.
What do you need, my friend?
Divine smile on you, friend.
You and me,
I suppose I should
we're the
return
only
my
people
papers.
around who aren't complete fools.
Happy hunting.
Well met. Huh? Alright then. Well met. By Debella. You mean... someone wants to publish my book? Wait. What do you mean by changes? Until next time. By Debella. You mean... someone wants to publish my book? Wait. What do you mean by changes? I know. It's something I've been wrestling with ever since I realized Aldonado lied to me. After you left, I dug up some old drafts on that novel, hoping to find some vindication. What I found was a stranger. I don't recognize the person that wrote those words. The inspiration was there, but not the voice to shape his thoughts. Yet now, I feel confident I can make it heard. I can tell the story of this orc the way it was meant to be written. If you'll give me a few days to rewrite it, I'll have something for you. Unless there was something else you wanted to add. Alright. I'll do my best to reward your faith. Alright then. need a bit more time. I just need to pare down some of these long paragraphs.
Frost took my husband years ago. He was a good man.
Yes? What's on your mind? Good. Just a few more days to work out the pacing. Yes? Farewell. Actually, it's done. I can't say for sure if the publisher will like it. At this point, I don't really mind if he doesn't. All it means is I have room to grow. I know I'm still aspiring. My journey is far from over. Still, the fact that he was willing to listen, and you were willing to help, means it's also far from hopeless. Here.
Papa says I won't see Rob here anymore, but he wouldn't tell me why not.
Well met. And here I thought the story of the orc with the stone hands would never get told. Glad to see you've kept it safe. Now, let me take a look. Now this, my friend, is a story. Give me a season or two, and the name ᵯᴑᴆᴆᴇᴆ will be known from here to ᵯᴑᴆᴆᴆᴇᴆ. Here, take this gold. Half is for you, and the other half is an advance for our newest writer. Well, good is a relative term. For a debut novel from an unknown writer, it's not bad. But the lad has potential, and I think it's worth investing our time. Safe travels. Greetings.
Papa
Safe
says
travels.
I'm gregarious, just like him. He says I'm smart, but my brother
What
says
is
he's
it?
wrong.
help you? Wow. I don't know what to say. Four. 400 symptoms. I said Are you sure? This is too much. Thank you. Well, I guess you're off to go on more adventures. But before you go, tell me, who exactly is this publisher in Solitude? Flint Horstad? The man who wrote The Duke of Beards? Suddenly I'm not so sure I trust his endorsement. But I confess, I haven't read his recent work. I've heard that it's far more substantial. In any case, I'm grateful to you both. Now when I look out from the lighthouse, I no longer feel so much despair. I feel hope. Goodbye. I really should pay Flint a visit and thank him. Is he still in Solitude? Berg was in here the other day. I mentioned my book and he asked if he could read it. You have to admire his tenacity. I think for my next novel, I'll pen a tale about an adventurer who walks from town to town helping the locals. Alright then. I can't wait to visit a library and find my book on a shelf. I'll think of all those long nights, never knowing if my words would find a home. Until next time. Berg was in here the other day. I mentioned my book and he asked if he could read it. You have to admire his tenacity.